It is unclear. For those who have looked at the slides, it appears that the government has direct access to their servers. What that actually means is unclear. What information the NSA is getting is unclear, and I don't want to say something that's not accurate, but I would just say keep reading the news, and we will see what the full extent of the spying is. Did you want me to push it back now? Okay. So one of the things that we heard about, of course, is the courts, and I think a lot of people still have a belief that the legal system is a way to address a lot of these issues. I think a really important case everybody should know about is Clapper versus Amnesty International. This is a case in which journalists, activists, and Amnesty International challenged the FISA Amendments Act, which is exactly what is allowing the spying that's happening now. And their case was thrown out of the Supreme Court because they didn't have standing. And what that means is they didn't have the legal right to sue. And that was because they couldn't prove that they were under imminent threat of surveillance. And they couldn't prove that they were under imminent threat of surveillance because the surveillance is secret. And that is pretty much exactly what we are living in right now. So one other thing I want to mention, there was a case that came out last week, Maryland versus King, in which the Supreme Court approved genetic testing for arrestees. I will talk about that case maybe a little bit more later, but I just wanted to mention that Justice Scalia in his dissent said that he was very concerned about the building of a genetic panopticon. And hey, you know, he joined in his dissent with Ginsburg, Sotomayor, and Kagan, just for anybody who hasn't seen the opinion. And when all of those join together, you know you're getting something really bad. So he talked about the panopticon as sort of a theoretical thing, but the fact is that the panopticon is here. So we know about the NSA spying, we know some of it, we certainly don't know all of it. And the other things that are out there are equally frightening, and people don't talk about them as much. The Next Generation Initiative is another thing I would absolutely call a panopticon. This is a database that can store information including iris scans, palm prints, it can aid in facial recognition, and this is a database that is being turned on across the country without any sort of oversight from elected officials. And for those who are familiar with the Secure Communities Immigration Program, which links criminal justice databases and immigration databases, the turning on of secure communities across the country was the first step in the turning on of NGI across the country. And that information comes from documents obtained by Freedom of Information Act requests. Again, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's very real. Another thing that is in every state, in every community now, is fusion centers. These are databases, again, that are connecting different areas of law enforcement that didn't used to be connected. So you can have, for instance, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Berkeley. Berkeley's actually very different when it comes to fusion centers. But you can have basically a report that goes from local law enforcement to your state emergency management agency, then directly to the FBI. And it can go to the FBI eGuardian database, and it will never leave once it's there. That's basically a black hole for data. So I think I'm going to stop there, and I just want to say before we continue that I am so honored to be on a panel with these distinguished panelists, and thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Nadia. If any of you can make your way through this Clapper case that Nadia just mentioned, I recommend that you do so. To read a convoluted Orwellian interpretation of the law that actually restricts our access to court, it's quite amazing, and it's a game of judicial gotcha. And I was heartbroken when I read it. It's going to be posted on Norm Solomon's website, Roots Action, I believe. Okay. Our next guest, our next panelist, Daniel Ellsberg, to answer the general question, 5 minutes or less. Daniel, the theme of this panel is Vanishing Civil Liberties. What do you think the general public doesn't know about that they should know about?
Okay, first thing to know is that reassurances by high officials, can you hear me? Or the president himself right now, on the limits of the surveillance of this country, of all the citizens, reassurances on that point are worthless. They carry no information whatever. Just as George W. Bush looked the country in the eye through the television lens years ago and said, "We do not intercept any American citizens without a warrant, without a court warrant." That was a flat lie, and was eventually proven, though unfortunately without documents. Nobody got documents, and Congress was not able to get any documents. As a matter of fact, I remember one exchange from the brief hearings that came out of that when Senator Leahy asked Alberto Gonzales, who was then the Attorney General, "Do you by any chance open mail?" And Gonzales' answer was, "I'm not here to testify about that." And Leahy said, "I understand that, that's not what we asked you, but since you are here, I'm asking you, do you open mail?" And Alberto Gonzales' answer was, "I'm not here to testify about that." Now that is pretty much of an answer, actually, if you're listening, but it wasn't followed up. Congress did nothing about it. Eventually, they did what they could to legalize the warrantless wiretapping that was going on. Although, when they talk about legalizing it, they can't make it constitutional. The fact is, that's not the same. When the president says that everything we're doing here is legal and refers to interpretations of his own, of the laws that Congress has passed, like the Patriot Act, you cannot repeal the Fourth Amendment by a president or by an act of Congress. Should understand that the constitutionality of any of this has not been, in fact, actually addressed even at the Supreme Court level, and it is blatantly unconstitutional. That's what Snowden now was providing us documents with, of a program that is blatantly unconstitutional. And if and when he is brought to trial, as he seems to expect, realistically, it will be an interesting question raised. It's never been raised in court. Can it be illegal, prosecutable, convictable to tell secrets that reveal crimes or unconstitutional behavior? Actually, that's never been a judge. People don't realize that, by the way. That's never been a matter of judgment, either the Supreme Court or any lower level. It's directly raised by what Snowden has revealed here. When Ron Wyden, Senator Ron Wyden now asked a similar question to James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, in the Senate in March. Do you collect data from the telephone calls of millions or hundreds of millions of Americans? And Clapper said, no. Now he's now been confronted by Snowden this week with the documents that prove that that was totally false. And Clapper actually was asked recently how to explain his answer. I think it was by ABC, and he said, well, a difficult question. That was the least untruthful answer that I could give. Meant that he was allowed to give, I guess. Now, a somewhat less untruthful answer would have been yes. As a matter of fact, the short answer is no, the long answer is yes. And what that means is what I said in the beginning. That Clapper, what he says to Congress, I don't remember whether he's under oath or not, but that's not significant for an official of the U.S. government. He's really not allowed to lie to Congress in public like that. That means that he was, in fact, lying, and that means that any assurance that all they're doing is collecting metadata simply conveys, as information theorists would put it, no information. There's no information in that assurance that they're not. Let me tell you what I think, and I don't have the proof, and I don't have the documents, and I call on people like Snowden, maybe Snowden will come up with it, or other people who know the truth on this, to tell us the truth, whether I'm wrong or not, in believing that in fact they do not content themselves as they collect all this data with who it's from and who it's to and when it was or how long the call is. I feel quite confident, I could be wrong, I feel quite confident that they are recording and storing indefinitely all the content of every email, every fax, every computer data, every like that. In other words, that privacy, it's not a question of balancing privacy, as the president has put it, and security concerns. He said you can't have 100% security, obviously true, and 100% privacy. We have 0% privacy right now. That's not a matter of balance. It has nothing to do with balance. And it is not required by the requirements of national security. What it is the collection of data that the Stasi, the secret police of East Germany, who call themselves the German Democratic Republic, that their motto, which in the movie The Lives of Others, which should be reissued right now and seen by every American, if possible, the motto was to know everything. They couldn't have imagined what is available now to the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, who constitute, as I see them now, the United Stasi of America.
Thank you. You can continue in the next question too, when it's posed to you. Next, we'll ask our panelist, Birgitta Jonsdottir. Same question, 5 minutes or less. The theme of this panel is Vanishing Civil Liberties. What do you think the general public doesn't know about that they should know about?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone that has come here tonight. It is so amazing to see how many people care. Thank you. I think I'm just going to tell you a little story. So in 2011, the FBI came into my home. Remember, I am a so-called parliamentarian, and lots of people trust me with their private information, the people that vote for me and so forth. So they went into my home and they went through all my letters, all my papers. They could see who I had been with, when, and for how long, and where. They went through all my letters to my mother. They read through all my poetry. They basically went through all my bills and so forth. And they didn't really enter the front door. They came through my back door. They came through the back door of the internet. And this has not caused a lot of discussion in the United States. However, there is a union among all parliamentarians or all nations, except I think the United States and maybe one or two others, called the International Parliamentary Union, and it's been around since 1887. And they were very worried about this, because once you establish a surveillance on the representatives of the people that are supposed to be serving, you are eroding the basics and the foundation of democracy. And I encourage you to look at the resolution that everybody that had a seat in the IPU, I think the United States is not there because they don't have veto rights. No, everybody's equal there. It's dangerous. So you can find the resolution if you go to the EFF.org website, which, by the way, you should really, if you are concerned about what's happening with the NSA and many other similar cases, you should really support the EFF. You should really go and look at what they're doing. They have made a really good timeline, for example, and explanations about what this NSA leak means so far. And what I think that the people in the United States might not be aware of is that the people in Europe that are also being surveilled if they use digital devices and social media by your NSA, our leaders in the many different countries in Europe are so worried about this probing into the privacy of the citizens of the EU that they are thinking of building a fortress around Europe. And the fortress is not against China, to protect us against China, Russia, North Korea, Cuba, and all the other dangerous places in the world. No, No, it is to protect us against the surveillance and the invasion in our privacy from the United States. And I just also want to encourage you, I'm so moved by how many incredible people I've met since I came here. I've been in the United States for about 11 days now. I've had the privilege to meet many of my heroes, including Daniel Ellsberg, but many, many others. There are so many amazing fighters here. And don't ever forget how incredibly strong you are. The only thing you need to remember to do is to just stop the trolling. Find the stuff you can agree on that is the single most important thing to do in your society. And very finally, I know that most of you know this, but free Bradley Manning, support Bradley Manning, support Jeremy Hammond, support Barrett Brown, and don't forget Snowden. I feel that we have a profound opportunity to change things now. Thank you.
So, last panelist, not the last, but the fourth panelist is Norman Solomon. And the question, 5 minutes or less, is the theme of this panel is vanishing civil liberties. What do you think the general public doesn't know about that they should know about? 5 minutes.
The Bill of Rights is in peril, and the Bill of Rights are part of human rights. The Bill of Rights hangs in the balance, and many lives hang in the balance. It is all interwoven together. The surveillance state of the United States equals the warfare state of the United States. The attacks on our civil liberties are totally entwined with the attacks on the people of Iraq, of Afghanistan, of Yemen, of countries we don't even know about are being attacked. It's impossible to have the consent of the governed when the governed don't have the information, the fundamental information about what's being done by their government in their names with their tax dollars. Passivity feeds war. Passivity feeds taking away civil liberties that we learned about in civics class, that we were taught to be proud of, that we thought of ourselves as nurtured by. And what we discover is that the leaders in the Congress, the leaders in the White House, the leaders in the courts, unfortunately as well, they cannot be trusted with our lives, and that includes our civil liberties. And to believe the overwhelming rivers of drivel that come from commercial and supposedly non-commercial outlets like NPR and PBS is to be dissuaded from the basic understanding that just as it's not enough to plow the fields if you want to harvest a crop, that it's necessary to see the project through. It's essential to plant those seeds, to nurture, to propagate, to harvest. It's also impossible to live in a democracy that deserves that term unless we organize. We've got to organize. And there is a script, and it's being played out. It's being played out by people, including the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, who does not deserve to be in that job. That would be Dianne Feinstein. And as well, it's being played out by a constitutional law professor who we now learn has no business working in the Oval Office. Now, these are not